you can't own your jokes. So
Right.
jokes are stealable, blah blah blah.
Right.
And you can't. And there should be a way where you could do like a patent or blah blah. And so he started talking about some version of NFTs and
go into blockchain.
and then through blockchain technology, you start to own those jokes, and then when they get used then there's.
Is there any dumber use of the blockchain than making sure that I can own my fucking dick jokes?
Yeah, well, that's. Apparently, this whole thing is set up so that you guys can have a debate that you've been having for years.
Have we? What debate?
It's just the comedy and art.
Comedy and art thing, or capitalism and art? Is it comedy
and art / capitalism and art.
Okay.
I feel like we've been on the same page. Have we really been debating it?
I feel like we have a lively discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can give it a shot. I'll kick it off.
Well, no, I wanted to finish. Sorry. Well,
Here's I think where we could start, just to establish where we all are. The question starts off with, and you could take it first. Do you think comedy is art?
I didn't used to, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, like when you describe what you're doing right there with it, like I see people that I'm like, that's art. I don't.
So I disagree.
I don't know, man. Maybe I don't. I kind of disagree with myself.
This old hobby horse.
This old hobby horse.
Yes. So,
and I was like, I just want to have this conversation again. I think it's a fun one.
I can go on. I think I can be on both sides, but generally, I've sort of cringed a little bit at like my art. Yeah. And I don't know if that's because that's my own negativity on myself, or if it's like I just don't really. See it as art, and then you watch somebody that does it a little bit, and you're like, that's like you,
but even if
Stuart again, or what you're doing right now, that's art, right?
But see, even with what I'm doing right now, or what anyone else is doing, if you label it as comedy, there's a purpose to it, and the purpose is a specific reaction.
Yes.
And I don't think that like in other art, a specific like people can have intention, but if they don't get a specific reaction, it's not, see, this is where we disagree. Like, I think that specific reaction of needing a laugh for it to be considered comedy.
But sometimes in comedy, you want them to do like gasp, or you want them to be like, no, you want them irritated. You want to take them through a bunch of emotions
but the end goal
is laughter.
No matter what you take them through.
For me, it's
for
laughter. Yeah.
It can't be, I'm just trying to create a cringe moment. I'm just trying to get you to think.
Is art creating an emotion in people? Is it creating a feeling in people? Is it creating something that people connect with? I mean, what's the definition of art?
What do you probably have? You ran like an art gallery.
Oh, wow. Don't put that out there. I'm a comedian, not an artist. No, I feel like art is an expressive abstraction of a feeling or an experience or a concept that you represent other than a literal description or definition of it. You try to elicit or evoke a feeling with some kind of gesture that is not just describing the feeling. Or you could flip it and be like, yeah, maybe self-referentially describing the feeling in the context of an art milieu could be considered an art. It's expression and not description is what art is. I have a broad definition
comedy is
of art.
description then.
Yeah, I think comedy is art.
Well, you just said that by definition it's not. The definition you just gave.
How in the world? How did you get that?
Because you said it's not. You specifically did all that, and you said as long as you didn't say exactly this, but you said all the stuff that were art, and then you said as long as it's not by description.
Yeah, when I say description, I mean like literal description. You know, because in comedy you don't just be like, let's see, let me think of a good one. If I were to describe my life in a very dry fashion on stage, that's not funny. You know what I mean? Comedy, you bury the lead, you misdirect people. The thing that people come away with sometimes is like different than the words that you say. That's kind of the point. Like in comedy,
okay,
it's not just like you can describe something and it's funny. Maybe you use a silly voice, whatever. But the thing that makes something funny is a cognitive dissonance that you create inside someone's mind. You have two unreconcilable kind of ideas or situations, and your brain's natural reaction is to laugh at that. It's a really specific thing. I mean, like...
But I would say that specific thing is why I remove it from art. Like, because you're trying to achieve that specific thing through those specific means, whether it be through, you know, the cognitive dissonance or the metaphor or through simile or whatever it is, like, because there is a specific goal to it. Like, I think all artists have goals. That's fine. You can have a goal from the art that you create. You can have an idea.
I don't have a goal when a joke comes to me. It just comes to me.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of a moment of inspiration,
maybe.
And then it's like, and then it's like, and then it's like find the. Yeah. And then your mind starts to do the work of fixing it, right?
But
and
maybe that's part of what art is. It's not something that you didn't set out to come up with that joke. You know what I mean? If you were telling me when you have a joke and you're inspired and you write it down, you're just trying to wrench out the idea that came to you, but you're doing it specifically to generate a laugh in someone else.
Right. But if I have a block of wood or a block of wood, if I had a block of granite or whatever, and I'm like, I see the art within it, and I chip away at it till there's a thing there, and that's art. But if I'm like, I want to write a joke about this book, right? And then it's like I chip away at it with my mind and my ideas and my thoughts and my whatever, however I've trained my mind to work to get to jokes, and then I build jokes out of that and mine that for joke. What's the difference?
That's a very good point, Tom.
Huh.
Okay.
No, I can see the chip away part. I think is you're right, where it's like it kind of does become.
I somehow had like that never happened.
To me,
never happens.
To me, what you're talking about though, is craft. Like, I think there is a difference between craft and art. I think comedy is a craft. I think there is like a way to. That might have been a bad example on my part of like.
What do you feel like the difference between art and craft is? How would you differentiate the two?
I think craft is something that craft is to me about the end result. Like, craft is to me about like, I'm building a table, I'm getting very good at building tables, and I'm just going to build tables, and these tables are functional. These tables are tables by recognition. You can send them out into the world. Everyone's going to look at it, and that's going to be a table, right? Same thing with comedy.
Everyone?
Who's not going to look at a table and think it's a table, Tom?
Gallagher? I mean, so
what does he set his melons on?
You know what I mean?
Fucking artist.
a really small person is like, I could live under here. You know what I mean? There are other things that it could be.
But like, it depends.
So everyone is just, don't use words like everyone.
But it depends on the react. Like, to me, what comedy loses in its artisticness is it depends, not only depends, but like relies on its reaction to be valid.
Okay.
Like, in other types of art, like if someone does a painting or someone does a statue or someone does those type of things, maybe they don't rise to the level of what people would consider high art, but it doesn't matter. Like, the result of it does not matter. Comedy, the result is theoretically all that matters. Mm. And I think that like if you're a results-based situation, that like removes the artisticness of like, I'm just trying to express, I'm just trying to bring out, I'm just trying to represent.
Do you think, okay, so is dance music not art because the end result is to have people dance?
Yeah.
It's not art?
I'd say if you can get people to dance, I'd say like, yeah, because if you're making dance music and people don't dance to it, it's not dance music.
Okay, that's
a good point.
You know? That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like
genre.
So if
it
so,
can be a
yeah,
genre,
it is a
but
genre.
then like it's no, you're not like. So if you have an objective, you have a stated goal. You're making dance music. Mm-hmm. These motherfuckers are not dancing.
So I used to listen to dance music when I would study in college. I wasn't dancing. I was studying. Did it cease to be what it was when I'm sitting in a chair as opposed to if I was dancing?
I think like the individual reaction to it might be different. Like, yeah, on your situation, it was dance music, but you weren't dancing, but you knew what it was for.
Oh, I knew what it was for.
You knew what it was for.
I think it can go, there's places where you can go both ways. Like mostly with art, right? It's like the idea is people don't show art before it's done, right? Generally, like
There isn't like an open mic
Mona
for
Lisa.
paintings.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is.
There is?
Yeah, like process performance art where the art is watching the artist do the art and make the thing in real life. Like it's an entire genre of stuff. There's also like, found art, which is just something where you recognize an evocative quality in something and it's done before you even see it. Like the act of seeing it and just putting it on a white pedestal is finishing it. It's, using something to express something.
But is there a reaction expected from that?
Yeah.
Why are you stuck on the reaction part?
Because that's the thing that I think that's where the split happens for me.
In art, whether it's art
in
or
art
not?
versus comedy.
So
like,
if you expect a reaction, then it ceases to be art.
I would say in comedy specifically, because the reaction is not only expected, it's required. Like if I can
That's
tell
like
you,
saying, so you're saying it would be like saying conversation is art, because basically comedy is a conversation between you and an audience, and if it's that's just what that
not
is.
necessarily conversation. I'm saying like with comedy and like with those type of things, it is like here's where I would like.
You wouldn't get a special if nobody laughed.
Exactly. It can't just be pontificating on ideas. It can't just be the idea that like I found this, I find it pretty. I found this.
The last 10 Carlin specials.
Okay, so what about the? Do you know that comedian Neil Hamburger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that hamburger? Or
His whole thing is to be so
good,
like specifically unfunny and like you don't laugh at him. And that's part of the joke. And
wait, there's 2 comedy hamburgers that are
There is 2
specifically not funny.
hamburgers, yeah.
They have the same goal in comedy.
Yeah, like specifically, it's kind of performance art, but he's a comedian.
But does he get laughs? I don't know him that well.
I've laughed at. I mean, I was smoking a lot of weed when I listened to him, but it is a entertainment product. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I wasn't like listening to that to learn physics or anything.
Sure. But like I guess it's this. It's that like
I would argue what the Jared Carmichael special, not the last one, but the one before, was more art than comedy. Because to me, comedy's finished jokes, not sort of.
And he's like open micing.
And he's sort of open micing. That's what I mean. Like you can't, like, I don't know. I don't feel like the joke, there's the creation point of the joke and the idea and the spark of what it's going to become. And then it's like, the flailing around, like building the sketch, the open micing and blah blah blah, and then it becomes this joke, or it goes to the fucking.
But
trash.
him specifically, I think he has always considered himself an artist, and I think that like that's why when he puts out those specials that are not quite comedy,
it's art.
It's art,
right?
Like that's why like his last special. I think his last special was great, but I don't think it was comedy. I think it was a very good artistic piece.
Was the last one the one where
he came out?
Yeah. The one before that was the one that Spike Lee did, or whatever. Same
that,
kind of thing, though.
No, the one before that was like was 8. That was the one with, but like the one before that is the comedy.
Oh, okay. So I've been
comedy
for 2
one.
specials since then because I was so annoyed.
The last one I thought was his closest.
He's hilarious, but something about that was like you didn't finish your art, and you know what I mean. You didn't finish the craft. And
I'd argue,
but arguably he was doing more art there than. Like you're saying,
but
I would.
I think especially in that first one, the intention was a comedy special, and the fact that you're like that wasn't funny, or like that didn't get it, or it didn't reach your level, is kind of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Like it's like if he did that special and there was jokes in there was things in there, but it didn't meet a level of expectation from what the audience is. He's not making that special for himself. He's making that special for an audience to watch that, to laugh, and then consider it, and then be like, oh yeah, this is funny. But when he gets to it, he did technically what he wanted to do. He put out exactly what he wanted to do. And there is debate over whether it's comedy because it didn't elicit the laughter that people were expecting from comedy.
Right.
But there's not that in any other situation. There's not that in any other art form. Where it's like, that might be a broad statement. I know you're going to correct
I would say broadly.
Let's ask the broad.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you were setting these up as being like, it's a dichotomy and they're mutually exclusive. Like there's a certain point where it ceases to be comedy and becomes art. And the thing that is the jump off is because it isn't like nonstop yucks. I think there's lots of different kinds of comedy. There are lots of different kinds of jokes. Sometimes it's like something that is heartwarming and it's meant to evoke a feeling of like, like thoughtfulness or something progressive, or it has a, political thing behind it. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just hitting a melon with a hammer. I think that making that differentiation is the same as like being like, well, it's not pretty, so it's not a painting, it's not art. It's just my kid could draw that kind of thing.
That is the distinction, though, is that like I think you could, in the way that you said that's not pretty, so it's not a painting. I think that like that does apply to painting.
There is an entire
in a way it doesn't apply to comedy.
Movement. The Dada movement.
Yeah.
That
where it's not funny. Or it's not funny.
Actually,
it is actually pretty funny.
Art was funny. That was an inside joke on art. It was a mixture of comedy, but it was also it's a high art movement. They teach it in art grad school, and it was anti-aesthetic. It was meant to specifically not look beautiful. You know what I mean? And it was a political statement against the bourgeoisie and high art during that time. I mean, it had all of those elements in it,
Is there an art movement within comedy that makes it not funny? And could it still be considered comedy? I would say that that's not. There is no art movement in comedy that's anti-funny. That's anti-eliciting laughter. It could be, you could call it anti-comedy. You could be doing the thing that like Neil Hamburger is doing. You could be doing those type of things.
Is he doing like sort of a version of what like Steve Martin did?
No, he's doing like more. He's kind of like more Dadaist, I think.
Yeah, it is very Dada. Like it's like aggressive. The jokes are not even jokes. It's and like his like live albums, it's a silent audience with people like coughing in the background or like, the occasional clink of silverware. And then there'll be like a moment where it's kind of like canned laughter when he does like, I'm gonna do there. It's a joke on stand-up comedy. It's performance art for sure.
Yeah.
But
he tours with bands and doesn't really do comedy clubs, I think. I don't know. I haven't like looked him up in a while. But
yeah, I mean, I used to feel like what's his name? Andy
Kaufman.
No.
Taylor.
He does it at Montreal every year. He does the
Kindler.
Andy Kindler. Yeah. Like I felt like he was sort of like the anti-comedy
guy.
I
love Andy.
Yeah, I love
right,
Andy
but
Kindler.
see, that's what I mean. Like there's laughter. Like the way you're describing Neil Hamburger, it's like you go out of your way to not make people laugh. It seems like a weird choice.
It is a weird choice. I mean, it's a specifically intentional weird choice. And it's, I would say that in a lot of ways, it's like high art. And the fact that it's not funny loops back around and makes it funny because it causes that cognitive dissonance I was talking about earlier where you kind of chuckle.
But if it stopped at not being funny and didn't loop around to being funny, it wouldn't be considered comedy. It would just be considered a person performing whatever they're performing.
Well, so
but
what does that stop you from like just differentiating it as a different kind of art from straight up comedy?
I would say it's a different kind of art, but I would say that's comedy. I would say comedy is not, it's not comedy though.
That's fine.
Like it might be a different kind of art. That's totally fine. I'm not trying to shit on art.
You just said, a different kind of art than the art of comedy?
Not a different kind of comedy. Not a different kind of comedy. It would be a different kind of art. Oh, you're getting me semantically,
right?
I'll take what I can get.
Are these similar parts of this discussion that you've had over time for the last?
Yeah, we had one really long one.
Yeah, we really did.
We had like a full 8-hour day of this conversation.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you come away with both of you with a little bit of changed minds, or
my mind changes constantly on this, and that's why I like talking to her about it.
I think mine maybe did a little bit, but I can't see eye to eye with Nevin on this point because comedy is so aesthetic and is so particular, and there are so many decisions that are that go into how to express this abstract idea or this common, straightforward idea in an abstract way using your body and the tone of your voice and the tempo with which you speak and, what your face looks like, the timing, the order, the choice of words, even the volume of your voice. I mean, it's so many things coming together in this like physicality and speech that, yeah, it's like eliciting a specific response. But I mean, like, I feel like there's lots of like high art that is meant to elicit a specific response. I just think laughter makes a sound, but it is just as useless as beauty in a nuts and bolts way. You know what I mean? Like, I think beauty is important in some ways, but it's not like food or shelter in other regards. It's not like a table or a bowl. It's something that speaks to a person's soul, to use a weird word. And I think that is the direction that art goes.
So where do you put comedy at? Where, like, you, in your scale of art, where is comedy there?
What do you mean, my scale of art? Like, how art is it?
Yeah.
It's so weird to like make something so subjective objective. Like, it's
Yeah, it's me being like, hey, what's the opposite of an orange? Like, it's like,
well, who would you consider more of an artist? Like a guy somebody doing stand-up, or somebody that's creating beautiful murals, or I don't even know what kind of art, just that can just bring a canvas to light, or can sculpt something beautiful. Like, what's the higher art, you know? Like,
I mean, you know what is high art and what isn't is less dictated by me, but more dictated by class.
People with money.
Like, it's like whatever costs the most, whatever is the most intellectual, and whatever ices out the hoi polloi better is considered high art, because it's a classist system of differentiating what's what.
Yeah.
I think
is there a level of work that has to go in before you're an artist, or are you just an artist as soon as you decide, hey, I like drawing? Or do you have to put in a certain amount of years at it to develop any sort of skill to become an artist and to be able to literally call yourself an art? Or, that's what I mean, is there a point where you reach that, or do you just, well, shit, I think I like drawing, I'm an artist now?
How many open mics does it take until someone can call themselves a comic?
Good point.
Yeah.
You know?
But
Eric would disagree with me on that, but because I think people think of themselves as a comedian before they are, a lot.
Oh, people think I'm funny. Everybody at the office says
Yeah, not just that, but like people that have been, you know, doing open mics for 2-3 years. Like, you don't realize until you've done it 10 years that those first 3 years you weren't doing comedy.
Yeah.
You were just sort of like, what do I do, and blah blah blah, and getting used to this. You are just like
just
you're
badly.
Like you're like how you have a sketchbook before you're going to have things that you start showing.
I'm scheduled to have that revelation about I wasn't doing comedy like next week.
Oh yeah.
It's on the
but you feel that I still feel that. Like, what have I been doing? You know what I mean?
For sure. Actually, Annie, to your point about how there's like a class aspect to art, that's kind of like the new wrinkle that I've been thinking about. Kind of one of the things I wanted is that, like, part of the reason I don't think comedy is art, especially under capitalism, is because it does not have a repository of value for the upper class. You can't invest in comedy or a piece of comedy the way you can like a Monet that is supposed to hold value through generations.
You know, I know a guy that might be working on that.
What are they working on?
In a way, like, we pitched around this idea, and he was like, yeah, I think I could do that. Like, I was joking around about like comics that you can't own your jokes. So jokes are stealable, blah blah blah. And you can't. And there should be a way where you could do like a patent or blah blah. And so he started talking about some version of NFTs and
go into blockchain.
And then through blockchain technology, you start to own those jokes, and then when they get used is
there any dumber use of the blockchain than making sure that I can own my fucking dick jokes?
Yeah, well, but for like anything you wrote, then like for as long, like for the generations that it's used, you know what I mean? And then it could become something like that. Like somebody could own the original version of that joke.
But what value does it actually have?
But what value does a fucking picture have to hold?
Yeah,
it's the value that's just agreed upon by the upper classes,
right?
That they're going to continue that. Like if this person owns a Monet, it has that much value. It will only increase because that is a repository of value.
You don't think that
We've decided
so the tickets to go see, like, I don't know, Jerry Seinfeld or something, especially now, would probably be a little bit more expensive than, I don't know,
me.
Yeah. There is implicit value in him just speaking words into a microphone.
Yes.
But the fact that it's not concrete and isn't a thing that can be passed down from generations makes it not art.
Under capitalism.
So would there be a way to...
So what about like dance and ballet? Is that not an art because it's something that requires a human being to do on a stage? You can't own a ballet performance and give it to your children.
But the Nutcracker will be performed forever. Jerry Seinfeld's jokes.
As long as there's marriage. Come on.
Oh, we're having fun.
Like Jerry Seinfeld's jokes, like.
But if do you think that there would be a market for for some rich person to own the bird flying into the mirror?
When I first thought this, I was like, maybe the only real like ownable or like repository of value type of thing might be the show. Because like it's going to have residuals. There isn't anything specifically timely about it that it could be played forever.
Right. I think that the jump off here is like, it's the difference between, I mean, not even so, because I think ballet and stuff is fine art, but it's like, I think because it is so rooted in the moment and the experience of seeing it and is ephemeral and has to be experienced and felt by an audience, makes it even more art.
I like this. I like that it's art. I'm over here at this art.
See, I would like that part is the thing that like that snags me whenever I have this conversation. Is that like, yeah, I would say that I don't put art as higher than comedy. I say that it's not art, but specifically I don't put it higher than because it's experiential in a way that, like, you know, a painting might not be.
I like the idea of being able to go like I'm an artist. I like that because then I'd be like, you know, something about it is like I've spent a lot of time in life being like, so, you know, but I don't know. I kind of like it. Like, I'm an artist. You know what I mean? I'm not a crazy person scribbling in a notebook.
I do have that thing too. Like recently I've been like, oh, I think I might. I've told this to someone. Has anyone watched that movie Patterson? It was what's that guy's name? Not David Lynch. Jim Jarmusch movie. So it's like a fucking weirdo movie. But it's the concept of the movie is there's a guy and his girlfriend. The guy is a bus driver and he writes poetry. And the whole thing is just like he has a routine, but he's an artist. He every day he drives the same bus route. He writes poetry during that. That's his difference in his life. So he drives a bus every day. It's the same route. He wakes up at the same time. He takes his dog out for a walk. All these things are very the same. He has a loop of his life. He has a girlfriend who is an artist. She one day she's like, I want to buy a guitar. I want to do this. I want to go make cupcakes. I want to do this. He's like, oh, this is expensive, blah, blah, blah. But he loves her. He buys her the thing. She produces her art. By the end of it, she's like kind of like the crazy sort of like artist, big, like not aloof, but, you know, kind of like a ephemeral type of character. When I first watched that movie, I was like, oh, I'm the bus driver. You know, I'm doing the same route. I'm doing the thing. I'm writing down poetry. I'm writing out my jokes every day. When I watched it recently, I was like, nah, man, you're the fucking crazy girlfriend. That's what, you are an insane person who has time in the middle of the day to come do a Dumbest Guy in the Room podcast.
No shit.
Because you're not having that routine every day. You are like an artist. But
so is he. That's sort of the lesson of it too, right?
So is he. It's
and part of art is sticking to it and doing it.
All of it is sticking to it,
doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good movie. You should watch it. Like people should watch that. That's a really good movie. But yeah, it's like now I'm going back on my own point. But it is sort of like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, I think that's fine. But it's like whether your medium is art or not is considered art or is like. Does it? I guess it doesn't.
Your medium, art isn't a medium. A medium is what is used to make art.
Portray. Yeah.
I thought a medium was like somebody that talked to ghosts.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's true.
Yeah. Do the mediums talk to, do they sense people's thoughts?
I think a
medium mentalist does people's thoughts.
Yeah.
One of my favorite.
A medium speaks to dead people, right?
Yeah. Like the guy, I forget his name, who's like, I'm getting a B name. Anybody in here?
John Edwards.
John Edwards. Yeah, that's a medium.
Okay.
A mentalist is like, I bet I can guess the serial number of the dollar in your pocket or something, or I can guess what color you're thinking, kind of thing.
It's like Nightmare Alley. That's the whole point of the movie. Like he goes from a mentalist to a medium, and it's like, oh.
What color am I thinking?
What color are you thinking?
Green.
Yeller.
Blue.
It was purple, but
because
you're wearing it. So,
look at that.
See, I was looking at the curtains behind
so you're the one that you look at, right? And I almost went blue because of your shirt.
Yeah,
but,
could
know
be.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that money.
There you go.
Yeah.
So follow question. So if does the artist have to make the money for it to be the art in capitalism?
No.
Okay.
No.
Somebody has to.
But that it's like purely repository of like that's what I've been watching a lot of fucking art documentaries, and I was like, and like
That'll
not just
fuck your
art documentaries, but like the culture around art, and like how like art historians really only mean something as they appraise value for these paintings so that someone else can put money into it and it has a marked value, like in auction or in something else. But like the only reason they're studying is this a Monet is not necessarily like it's a reason to understand the art for like
because they
the
have
lower
to decide
classes.
if it's good.
They have to decide whether it's good, whether it can be another repository of $5 million for the next generation.
But
so what's to stop that from ceasing to be a piece of art and just becoming an antique?
That's what I was about to say. It sounds like Antiques Roadshow, but with art.
I don't think it ceases to be a piece of art. Again, this is like very specifically under the umbrella of capitalism type of art, where it's like, I don't think it ceases to be art because of that, but we live in the era we live in. And so under that era, this is where my argument comes that comedy isn't, because it doesn't have that repository of value. Maybe it is in like early cultures where it was like, drama and comedy, maybe those like things. But like, I think
comedy is underrated in its value. Comedy is valuable. People need laughter.
Yeah.
It it can change their life. Like my sister today was just telling me she's been really fighting depression, and she had COVID, and she had a head injury. There's a lot of shit going on, and she's just been crazy miserable. And then today she went and got acupuncture, and we'd been having this conversation about how when your emotions put you in a place and your thoughts put you in a place, your body lives that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't know that that's not reality. So you can make yourself this victim or this thing. That's just what your thoughts are doing to you. And then, so she's been having a lot of that. And then today she was getting acupuncture, and she said she's laying there and she started thinking about, she had a couple dogs, and she started thinking about like when one dog would go outside and the other one would just chase her around the house, and just like, and she said she was just laying there laughing, thinking about like how much it made her laugh when he would do that. And then she was like, and then I started thinking about this other thing and the hotels I've stayed with this friend of mine and how much laughter. And she was like, and I was generally like sort of reliving those moments and laughing for real.
Yeah.
And then all of that shit was gone. Like my depression is gone. That's how much it changed.
Yeah. I'm not saying
whole life,
comedy and laughter is like not valuable. I do think it's valuable. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think it like had value.
Maybe not monetarily.
But is it? But like I would say, when it comes down to the art question, it is every painting doesn't have to have the same goal. Under comedy, whether it be expressionist and it wants to be considered, but if it wants to be considered comedy, it has to have one goal. It can have many different paths. It can have many different expressions. It can have many different ways, many different forms. But if it's comedy, there's got to be laughs.
Something that's interesting, because it's like for art, like an art, you're going to paint it. What makes it art is you doing it right the way you want to do it. What comes from inside of you, and you put it on the thing or you carve it out, and then it's like, and then you just put that expression out there. And in comedy, you're like, I got to change this a little bit because it won't work as well if I say it the way I want to say it, right? If I say it the way it came out of me, it's not going to get the same laughs as if I change it a little bit. So like, for instance, I thought that me and my wife were talking about something, and she finished my sentence, and I thought, my wife finishes my sentences for me, not because we're soulmates. She just has to have the last word, right? And then so I thought, then I'm like, and now, but I know that joke isn't going to work because it slams my wife. So I have to rewrite that joke to be like, oh no, okay, here's how it'll work. If I say we finish each other's sentences, not because we're soulmates, you know what I mean? Like it's like, so it's not really the joke I want to tell and how it comes from my life. So I don't.
It's truth,
so
but
does
it's
that
not
make
truth.
it less art? You know what I mean?
No. Because art, like, it's not just they. You know, an artist will imagine someone looking at it. It's something that they are showing to another person. It's not completely arbitrary. Like, I'm just gonna put this on a page, and if people like it, they don't. I mean, like, people want to move other people, I guess, be liked, but also you just want to create an emotion in somebody else. And like, if you do it this way, it doesn't work as well as if you do it this way. I mean, it's part of the practice, and it's not just like, you know, oh, that doesn't even look like a hand, I'm going to practice my hands. It's so like, there's this, you know, Kandinsky. Have you heard of him? He does.
No, I'm lost because I'm starting to think, because I think of art as all of a sudden my thought of it is it's an expression from within you out, not how do I make this so that people like it. It's about how do you love it. Like that's like kind of what I'm. Okay, now I'm coming back around to you.
Where it's like,
just because of that.
That's what, at least that's what my conception of art is. What leads me to this point.
Right, but then you're saying that's not, that an artist is still, it's not just about like, here's my artistic vision. It's still about trying to fix it a little bit and change it and edit it to make it more palatable for other people.
Kandinsky does these abstract paintings, and it's these collections of shapes, colors, tones, dotted lines, stuff like that. I mean, you could look at it and be like, I don't know, it's just a bunch of fucking circles. Who gives a shit? Or like, I guess that's just what he saw in his head. I went to go see his retrospective in New York. It's just like the Guggenheim, and it's just like a big spiral full of those Kandinsky paintings, which were amazing. They were really cool. But the thing that made me realize how fucking cool they were is down in one of the lower levels, there was a presentation. It was a video they were showing, and it was, you know, that software they use to kind of track pupil movements. People use it to operate a computer screen if they have like, you know,
Stephen Hawking.
Or people with like Lou Gehrig's. Anyway, not the point. Part of Kandinsky's paintings, like, they have a rhythm to them, which is kind of a weird thing, because you're like, how can a picture have a rhythm? They lead your eye along a certain path in a certain order, and you kind of, and so they had the pupil tracing software run on, it was the person who curated the show looking at it, I think Kandinsky expert, someone who had never seen Kandinsky before, and like an art student or something. And it was, I mean, the same fucking track. You know what I mean? It's like people's eyes went from here to here to here to here, and that was
just sort of knew that. He just sort of knew that artistically, or he.
Yeah, that was the thing he was trying to do.
It's cool that he.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's like,
cool.
just because it's not a laugh, he's trying to get a person to do something that's kind of arbitrary. It's, if it was just a bunch of just triangles and circles on a canvas, it's just not the same, you know?
Yeah.
I remember in my lifetime though, like when art became like, it looked like artists were just throwing paint like at a canvas and being like, that's $7,000. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's terrible shit. I remember the Atlanta airport bought a bunch of it, and it's like, that's not even art. That's just like the throw cloth underneath where they're painting. And then over years, I've changed on that, and I'm like, that's fucking cool art, right?
Yeah, man, abstract expressionism, and it's sort of like each artistic movement is a upheaval of the previous movement. It's, you know, it'll be like, not each, but a lot of them, it's like a middle finger to what the rich people like.
And then the rich people fall in love with it.
And the rich people fall in love with it, and they consume it and cannibalize it.
What did I interrupt you?
I was just saying, like, you were talking about, like, you were trying to change jokes, how you wouldn't normally say it that way. And I was thinking like Michelangelo was a sculptor, but he did the Sistine Chapel. So he painted, but he usually sculpts. And then he didn't even really want to do the Sistine Chapel. They were just like kind of felt pressure to do it. Yeah, and it's like he had to do stuff he didn't really want to do it, and it's still like one of the most talked about things, you know. So it's like
that's true.
It's still really high art.
I think Da Vinci did some of that too. Like they would do art because that was how they made their living.
Yeah.
And what they were commissioned to do, and they would get those commissions so that they could do what they really wanted to do.
Yeah, and he like put kind of
like invent stuff. He was a fucking scientist.
Yeah,
man. He was a super genius human being.
It's interesting. Some of that stuff that they credit him with, like inventing the helicopter and those kind of things, in his drawing, he kind of did. But that was when he was in theater, and those were really just like small prop things that he was building and scenery that he wanted. It wasn't necessarily that he's like, I'm going to figure out how to build a helicopter. It was like he needed a thing as scenery in his play.
Oh,
and he would design that.
Kid.
Yeah. But yeah, he was a crazy, like, great scientist. Like some of the stuff he discovered as a scientist, they never learned about because he didn't publish it, and then it was rediscovered hundreds of years later. Like, and that he would probably be one of the great scientists in that list of like Newton, blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
just because of him chopping up bodies and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, his Walter Isaacson biography is just amazing. Like the level that he has some of the best drawings of a fetus in womb. You know, they're better than sonograms. They're so good. You know,
Damn. The
reason the Mona Lisa's smile is so weirdly good is because he did autopsies on so many bodies and stuff to learn like from the brain what muscles start to move when, and he would paint he'd paint the skeleton, and then on top of that start to paint the muscles and the tendons and all that stuff, and then add the skin, and then instead of just being like an artist and being like, oh, I don't do the skin, just make it, he built it like inside out on the paint. It's crazy.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that about
bananas.
That's
nuts,
Bananas.
That's
it is
super
bananas.
nuts.
But I think that's common art. I don't know if it's common, but I was talking to an artist just a week or so ago, and she was like, oh yeah, we kind of do that. I'm like, oh, I never would have. It just seems so much overkill, like to do all of that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta maybe kind of, but it's sort of the human body is a complex structure, you know, and it's like so easy to have this little tiny thing that makes it not quite puts it in
real.
the uncanny valley a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like if you understand what all the stuff you can see is resting upon and the different things that move underneath it and make it move, it's easier to kind of draw a more true to life gesture because you understand the mechanics.
Like I would have never thought of that. It's like that's such a different level of art and to me, you know. So I don't know if you do that comedically. So
yeah, I don't think that, like, I'm trying to think of what it would be. It would be like, do you describe marriage and then do marriage jokes?
Okay,
like
well, it's
or
sort
you
of
just think of like, I thought of a funny thing today, and you just go say it. Everybody thinks of funny things.
Yeah.
That doesn't make them artists.
So
does it make me an artist that I walked into the club and walked up on stage and told it?
But I think with jokes, that skeletal structure is already, that's like what everyone already knows. Like, and you were just basically, if I'm going to make the art argument, you are basically taking that skeletal structure that everyone knows and putting your Mona Lisa on top of that. Like you're taking all these concepts, all these base ideas, and you are taking, and then you are making your art. If your art is the comedy, like I'm trying to take your side on this one.
Okay.
Where it's like, if your art is the comedy, the entire world and everyone and the things that we all mutually know together, that's the skeleton. That's the skeleton that you paint on the canvas.
So it's like already a framework.
There's already the framework. Your art, if we're gonna call comedy art, is when you say, hey, you know that thing we all know? This is what I'm seeing on that.
Well, there's still kind of rules like that in art, like different, types of art. Like it's like, oh, it has to look this way to be a expressionist, or it has to be this way to be cubist or something. So it's kind of like, do you think that's kind of
also
the same
tricks,
kind of rules a little bit?
You can put colors next to one another and they vibrate and pop off against one another. There's different ways you can hold a paintbrush, different kinds of paint, dilution.
Yes. Now, do you think all those things when Annie was describing like all the stuff that's going on in the comedy, I have to have this expression, I have to use this funny voice, I have to, do you have a lot of those thoughts going on in your head as you're on stage? Like,
No.
I need to do this, I need to do this?
No.
Okay. Do you have that at all, or is that all like...
When I write the joke and I do it at open mics, I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this with my hand or something.
Okay.
I'll pause here. Sometimes it just kind of happens, which also the same thing happens in visual art, where you're just kind of doing it and you're just feeling it and you're kind of painting, and that mark ends up going there and you're like, wow, that's where that mark lives, you know?
Maybe I don't think of it as, maybe that's part of, like, I don't really think of it as an art. So I don't really take it that's like, I don't think of like this joke to this joke as a part of the art I'm trying to create. And I think it's just like, get to a laugh, get to a laugh, get to a laugh. You know, I don't have like a theme running through it or any of that stuff. Like I don't pay enough attention to that. Maybe. I wonder if you think of it as an art, if it would make me do it differently.
Maybe it would make it less funny. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
That's your point.
That's less funny.
Well, but the thing is, it is, I think the same thing can happen with visual art too. If you're like, I'm an artist, I think that's just a matter of taking yourself too seriously.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
It's not changing what you're doing. It's just adjusting your value system within the thing you're doing. So it's a little bit more self-important and a little less like, you know.
I think what you just said just made me realize the core of like why I think this is that, like, as soon as I feel like I'm like, oh, this is art, I'm going to take myself too seriously. And it's not going to be, for me, comedy is the exact opposite.
Okay.
You know,
I was thinking when I just looked down that Steve Martin thing, one of the things that stood out to me in his book on stand-up was that once he realized, like you're saying, that thing that happens in the brain has to happen. There has to be that release point for the jokes or whatever. And then he specifically said he went and tried to take all the jokes, punchlines and stuff out of his act and just see where those things, because they have to happen, right? There has to be that release. So he would specifically try not to have jokes and to see where those releases came. Like couldn't go on stage with that kind of a plan. Like, no. Okay, I'm going to try not to get laughs and just blah, blah, blah. Like,
that's like an acting exercise though, that always works. It's like an exercise that people do when they first learn improv, is that the instructor is very specifically like, go up there, do not try to get any laughs. Do not try to say anything funny. Just blah, blah. Just don't think about funny at all. And then like the real funny people will get up and they'll say nothing funny, but they will get laughs because they are funny. And just the way they look at things, the way they move about, makes things funny. Yeah, the way they move about. Yeah. Look at you. Tither. Look at you, Tom.
Moving around hither and thither. No, that's what I noticed when I did the improv class. I only did the first one, but it was like I could tell the people who were like, I'm gonna be here and be the funny one.
Yeah,
it's like,
never works.
Dude, I don't know anything about it. It's just like, oh, I open mic and now I'm doing this, and it's like I don't know anything about this, and I saw the people trying it and I was just like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, as soon as you like, that's like I don't remember how we got to that point, but
you're talking about taking yourself too seriously, and then Steve Martin, you were talking about Steve Martin's thing. I got the minutes here. So.
Okay, good. So have we solved this? It is and isn't art? Do we get anywhere? Did anybody change their minds?
My mind changes constantly. Yes. I feel like I just like having both ways. I like having the conversation. I think it's like just an interesting, evolving conversation.